Are you struggling in life? Maybe it's because you've overlooked one thing: mental toughness. For so many years, I had no clue. This is something you have to develop. It wasn't until I got sick of failing that I had a hard look at myself and I realized how mentally weak I really was. That's when I decided to change the way I think, speak, and even act. When I did this, my whole life changed. That's why I want to share some of these habits, because I know how important it is for us men to develop the right mindset and become mentally stronger. So the first thing I learned to stop myself from staying mentally weak is learning how to channel my desires as a man. Women are the most beautiful thing on this planet, but it's one thing us men can't live without. But women will rob you of your most vital power source as a man: your sexual energy. I was someone who always focused on the wrong thing, and one of those things was women. I thought my sexual energy was only meant for one thing: getting women and releasing it at every opportunity I could, but I didn't realize this was keeping me mentally weak. Because I was always being controlled by my urges, it led to me building a mindset that focused on women and short-term pleasure, which took my focus away from doing the important things as a man: developing my mindset, developing my brain, developing my skills, but also developing myself. Therefore, I ended up staying stuck in my 20s and 30s. I wasn't able to make progress because I was focused on the wrong thing. I always put my urges first, which led to me wasting my most vital years. Us men are very simple creatures, so picking up bad habits is so easy, but breaking them can take a lot of time and a lot of effort. Therefore, if you want to become mentally stronger, you gotta learn to not waste this vital power source you have as a man, and learn to channel it into better things. Like going to the gym, learning a combat sport, learning something new. Maybe you learn a new language, spending time to plan your week, getting a second job so you can earn extra money, even starting a side hustle. Instead of wasting that vital power source on a girl that you're probably never gonna see again, or even into a piece of paper, use that energy to become a better man, but also to become mentally stronger. Every time you control your urges, then choose to do something that will improve your life, you will build discipline, but also you will rewire your brain to become stronger. Furthermore, you're teaching your brain to not be controlled by its desires, creating an unbreakable mindset. But if you continue to give in to your impulses, you will develop a weak mindset that only seeks pleasure and never achieves anything in life. No one ever told me there's more uses to your sexual energy. If I had learned this sooner, I would have been a lot further ahead, but also I would have made a lot less bad decisions. So the next time you get that itch, instead of giving in, take a second to think how you're gonna rob yourself of this energy. Then choose to do something better that's gonna actually improve your life. No, I'm not saying ignore women, do semen retention for 2 years, but what I am saying is don't waste all your vital energy on something that's not going to give you anything back. Learn to channel your desires, learn to control your urges, and you will become mentally stronger. The next thing we need to do as men is learn how to control our emotions, because if we don't, we will stay mentally weak. As men, we're going to experience rejection, failure, disappointment, more rejection, more failure. We're going to experience every emotion there is, but we cannot allow that to control us. We have to learn to control our emotions, because if we don't, we will build the wrong mindset. This is one major thing that held me back in my life: not being able to control my emotions, either getting too angry or too emotional. This cost me friendships, relationships, and even some business deals. So when I was at university, I had this awesome friend. No matter when I wanted to go out, I'd phone him, he'd come up. But on this particular night, we went out, and every time I was chatting to a girl, he kept coming standing next to me. And it kept on happening every time we went out. One day, I lost it. And I said to him, why do you keep standing next to me? Why don't you go chat to some girls? After that day, he never came out with me again. And I didn't realize how much of a prick I was. Instead, I should have looked at the situation thinking, this guy can't chat to girls, so how can I help him to make him more confident and have the ability to chat to different women. Instead, I let my emotions take over, I freaked out, and I lost a good friend. If I just took some time to not get angry and help that guy out, I would have improved our friendship, but instead I got angry and we were no longer friends. And this guy doesn't even know about this story and he probably doesn't remember it, but I do. Because I let my anger, my frustration take over, I lost a good friend. Another situation where anger cost me. I used to work in a hospital in London and I used to get on with my boss. I love working in the hospital. But then my boss won a new contract and I had to go work in another hospital. The other hospital was 4 hours away. Instead of telling him, no, I don't want to do it, I said, okay, I'll do it. But deep down, I didn't want to do it. And over the days, I was getting frustrated with traveling. And instead of being a man and just saying to him, I don't want to do this no more. It's not for me. Let me find another contract. I would just end up getting angry and sending messages saying the hotel's not right, the clinic's not right, I'm stuck in traffic, there's no Wi-Fi. And I ended up breaking that relationship because I couldn't control my emotions. So if you want to become mentally stronger but also build a stronger mindset, you need to become a lot more conscious of your actions. The next time you're flooded with emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, even excitement, take a second, just breathe and think before you act. When you do this, you're telling your brain you're not controlled by your emotions. Once you do that, you become mentally stronger. You start to think before you act and you start to make the right decision. And every time you make that right decision, you reinforce that strong mindset. The third thing you have to do if you want to become mentally stronger is stop blaming others. It's so easy to point the finger when you make mistakes or things are not going your way. But every time you blame someone else for your problems, your mistake, your situation, you're telling your brain that you're not capable of finding a solution. So you end up staying mentally weak, but also stuck in a situation you don't want to be in. When I was at university, I started my first business, but that business failed. And when it failed, I felt like a failure. But instead of looking at my mistakes, I decided to blame everyone around me. Because I didn't take time to look at all the things I did wrong, I ended up making the same mistakes over and over again, which kept me mentally weak. By choosing to blame others, I didn't realize I was taking power away from my brain. I was telling my brain I was not capable of achieving the things that I wanted, which was keeping me mentally weak. After learning the importance of taking responsibility, but also learning from your mistakes, I was able to develop the right mindset. Once I started learning from all the mistakes and failures, I started to become mentally stronger because I realized every failure, every mistake contained valuable lessons. And once I started to look at things like that, I developed the right mindset. I didn't see my past failures, past mistakes as a bad thing. I started to see them as a positive, which helped to reinforce that mindset that I can do things, I can try things, but also if it doesn't work out, I can learn something from that experience. Once you change the way you think and look at things, you can develop a stronger mindset. But if you continue to blame everyone for your situation, your life, you will remain mentally weak till the day you die. Taking responsibility is not about being hard on yourself or calling yourself a failure. It's just about looking at your past experiences with an open mind. Once you start to do that, you learn a lot more. And when you learn, you develop the right mindset. Furthermore, no matter how much fault you find with the other person or the situation, I want you to remember there's some things that are out of your control. By complaining about it, you will remain weak. But if you can step up, take responsibility and start to focus on the things you can change, you will start to develop the right mindset. Instead of saying, it's not my fault, start to say, how can I change this situation? How can I improve things? What can I learn? What can I do? Once you do this, you force your brain to take action. Action leads to results. Results leads to a stronger mindset. The next thing you want to pay attention to is the words that are coming out of your mouth. Without even realizing it, you could be creating a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is when you believe your abilities and your situation are fixed and they cannot be changed no matter what you do. And your words reinforce that fixed mindset. If you're saying, I can't do it, it's too hard, I can't get that girl, I'm not clever enough, I have bad luck, you reinforce that fixed mindset, which keeps you stuck and stops you from changing your life. For so long, I lived with that fixed mindset. When I was in school, I always said I wasn't clever enough. So when it came to learning, I found it difficult. I said I didn't like English, so every time I stepped into an English lesson, I would end up switching off. But by making one simple switch from I can't to I can, you can develop a growth mindset. And once I made this switch, everything changed. A growth mindset is when you believe your abilities and your situation can change. Once you start believing, everything starts happening. Once I started to say, I can learn new things, I can get that girl, I can make my business work, I can make this amount of money, I can do whatever I put my mind to, I developed a stronger mindset that forced me to take action. And like I said before, action leads to results, results lead to a stronger mindset. So don't underestimate the power of your words and how they could be destroying your mindset. Make those simple switches from I can't to I can, and you will develop the right mindset. Now, if you want to learn how to be a lot happier in the mornings, you might want to click here.